Juggalo Ryan 3 asks, do you think humans will evolve into something unrecognizable to modern humans? I know that we won't be considered human anymore. If so, why would we evolve in such a way? Will we perhaps change only slightly, disregarding gallbladders, wisdom teeth, and other nagging body parts and pieces? How and to what extent will we evolve? What an absolutely mind-blowing question. Thank you for that, Juggalo Ryan 3. There are some that say that human beings have stopped evolving, that because we take care of our sick and because of technology like growing food and bringing water to desert places, that we have stopped the natural selection on our species, that the weakest no longer are weeded out. But really that's kind of a misunderstanding of evolution. Evolution isn't really about the weak and the strong. It is about the most adapted to this and the lesser adapted to this. And the fact is, we as modern humans, we create a certain environment for ourselves. And if we maintain it long enough, that is what we will naturally adapt to. We will be more dependent on that environment that we create for ourselves. But certainly as technology gets greater, there will be greater opportunity for us to interfere with our own genetic development, being able to create designer genes and create I don't know, additional stuff for ourselves. Maybe we will be able to change our own bodies into whatever. And of course, eventually, once we start moving out into space, there will be different environments there and an opportunity to be selected for those various environments. I don't think our intelligence will ever go away, believe it or not, just because it's pretty useful in us, and it's the useful things that don't go away. I think if we ever get to the point where we don't need our intelligence anymore, then it'll start to go away because it's a waste of resources to maintain it if we're not using it. But again, this is really over large periods of time. What will happen to us eventually? I don't know. I read somewhere that eventually we're going to change our bodies so that our bodies are like little spaceships of their own. And something about in order to live for millions of years, our consciousness will only be active for a few seconds a year. And that way we can last for millions of years and it won't seem like forever to us. And once you reach that point, we're not exactly human anymore, are we? Well, no, not really. I don't know if we'll ever get that far. We may destroy ourselves in the next 50 years. Interesting question. YouTuber Serviente777 asks me, I would like to know how you think our universe came into existence. String theory, superstring theory, Big Bang theory, expansion theory, etc. And why? Well, first thing I'd like to say, Serviente, is that these things are not necessarily mutually incompatible, meaning it doesn't have to be just one of these or another of these. The Big Bang theory says basically that the universe began in a very hot, dense state, and that it changed from there. Other things like how the universe expanded from there, and things like superstring theory and so forth, they try to get the details that the Big Bang doesn't cover, but they're not necessarily incompatible with the Big Bang. Certainly, the evidence seems to say that the universe is only a finite age, that it doesn't go back infinitely. That seems to be mostly what it tells us. But cosmology is a relatively young field, and there is a lot about it that I really don't understand. What I do is I kind of leave that to the experts. I don't even have the mathematic knowledge to be able to look at a lot of those theories and go, oh yeah, well that's obviously right, and oh yeah, that's obviously wrong. I have to depend on those people who do know this stuff to kind of tell me this is what we think and this is why. And I find all that interesting, but personally, I really don't know. I believe that the universe has not existed forever. I believe that it, like I said, it is of a finite age, and I believe that the universe is necessarily existent in itself. I don't think it needed a cause, and I think that the universe is all that exists. I don't know did that answer your question? I hope so. And finally, we have a YouTuber to myself, I call him Baseman. His actual handle is BaseMMBN3. And he asks, I would like to get a Darwinian explanation of the evolution of the chaperonin protein, which is a capsule protein that shapes other proteins to fit their functions. So if you were to go back in time, what would have shaped the chaperonin? I think I might have spelled the name of the protein wrong. Sorry. No problem. I got it. Now, from an intelligent design point of view, which is where Baseman is coming from, it makes sense. This is something that the designer put into living things to allow them to live. But from a Darwinian point of view, this is kind of a gotcha question. You know, it's like, how can that happen? Explain that, Darwinist, kind of a thing. I think the problem here is your question is predicated on a bad assumption. And that is, well, two bad assumptions. A, that early life forms used the same long, complicated proteins that modern life forms do. And B, that proteins need something to help fold them at all. Both of these are false. Proteins will fold spontaneously by themselves. As we get to the longer, more complicated proteins, they can make mistakes, and that causes obvious problems for the organism, including death. So the early organisms would have used simpler proteins, and they would have had to have gotten along without any help folding them. Okay, that's easy enough, right? Then, as they evolved and proteins started getting more complicated, mistakes would still be made, and anything in their body plan which would have helped ensure that proteins get folded correctly. It doesn't have to be something as specialized as the modern chaperonin protein. Anything at all, anything that would give it even 1% increase in the chance of folding correctly would have been a Darwinian selective advantage. And of course, like everything else in Darwinian evolution, as time goes on, we get adaptation to a particular environment, and that would include proteins adapting to whatever mechanism that those early cells used to ensure their folding properly, and that adaptation to it and increase in complexity of it would have resulted in the modern chaperonin proteins that our cells currently need. Now, if you want specifics, like, okay, this is what the chaperonin proteins were like during this period of time, and that, I don't have that, and that's something that you can look up if you want to. But I don't, I don't even know if anybody knows that kind of information detail, if that's what you're looking for. But I don't see anything conceptually wrong in a Darwinian sense of how such a thing could evolve. The only way that wouldn't work is if proteins were absolutely unable to fold themselves, and that is patently false. So that's it for this video. Feel free to ask me anything you want to know. I'm happy to discuss a number of different subjects. I may not be, terribly knowledgeable on a lot of different things, but I try to apply reason and logic and just good sense as much as I can. And if I'm wrong about stuff, I am very happy to hear it from other people. Please tell me, why am I wrong? Why are the answers I gave full of shit? I like to hear that stuff because I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to hang on to wrong ideas. Thank you.